Alright guys, welcome to the first Advanced Solo Queue Statistics Vlog 4, Season 4. We're going to be covering January and February 2014. And if you're new, I encourage you to go check out my previous videos where I explain how I derive all these statistics and everything in more detail, and check out the blog as well. I'll have a link posted in the information for you. So first and foremost, if you guys have seen me before, you notice something a little bit different. I'm going to be trying out Prezi, which is free cloud presentation software. If you haven't checked it out yet, feel free to Google it. It's pretty neat stuff. So we're gonna be trying it out. I'm not sure how it's gonna work when comparing things side to side, but we're gonna give it a whirl and see how we go. Feel free to give me feedback on what you think. I know that I'm pretty terrible putting presentations and everything together, so the fonts and the color schemes are pretty bad. So just bear with me a little bit. The numbers are what really matters here. So let's dive right into it, shall we? General statistics. These are just basically things you can look up anywhere for the most part. So win-loss information. My highest placement was Plat 3 at 54 LP. My lowest was Plat 5 at 93 LP. So I spent 2 to 3 games in Plat 5 before I was back up in Plat 4. So I've mostly been hovering, and the majority of the games have been in Plat 4 and some in Plat 3 now. Overall record of 35 wins, 35 losses. So I played 70 games. Worth noting, that is not on here actually, there were 7 disadvantage games, and I count a disadvantage game as something that as like a 4v5, a DC, a rage quit. These were not factored in for the sake of numbers. I actually factored them out, so there was a handful of these games that were factored out. KDA information. So I put my total kills, deaths, and assists all together, and then I put the actual average per game. So if you put it all together, I had an average KDA. This is across all games of 3.1 to 1. So that's as mid, top, jungle, etc., etc. So 4.5 is a relatively low death total for me. It's not the lowest I've ever had, but it's pretty low. It's pretty much on the low side for me. I died a lot more when I was doing my grind up to Plat 1. The end of the season. For comparison, that and the month before I had over 5 deaths a game, which is a little bit. It's actually not a little bit. It's way too much. So the assist counts are also higher, and the kills per game is slightly higher as well. So Team KDA. I just started tracking the actual Team KDA. I haven't really followed it. I've kept track of team kills and everything, but it's the first time I've actually really followed Team KDA. So we're gonna keep an eye on that and see how it goes. So I'm done higher than the average teammate. Highest single game CS was 381 on Ziggs, but it's easy to get farm on Ziggs, so I'm not too surprised. Plus 25. I believe that was against a diamond, a high diamond rated player. We'll see. I forget actually. That was an outlier. That was a game where I just won a ton of points. I've usually been winning about 20 to 23 points. I'm losing now between 17 and 20. Environmental statistics. So environmental statistics are anything that has to do with, time of day, how I'm feeling that day, what I'm listening to, how many games in a session, etc. So one of those things is time of day. So I separate this into 3 blocks: the morning, night, and afternoon. You can see the times listed there. So the night block's 8 o'clock to 4. I played 20 games in the night block. I went 9 wins and 11 losses. The morning block, I actually rarely play in the morning block anymore because I work, but sometimes on weekends if I'm awake I'll do it. So I managed to play 10 out of my 70 games in the morning block. This time I went 4 and 6. And then the afternoon evening block, which is noon to 8, which is when I'm playing the majority of my games these days. It wasn't as much so last season. So, afternoon, evening, I get home from work, usually play. So 22 and 18 in those. So that's my best time period and most frequent and most comfortable. First game of session, I'm 8 and 8, so I'm not starting slow. Although to note further in that, I am actually feeling like I'm starting slow. My record's not showing it necessarily, but I am feeling like I'm not quite starting as quickly as I could be. And I recently have been adding a warm-up game to my regiment to try to be ready for game 1 to eke out those last couple percents to increase the winning percentage total. Single game sessions 2 and 2. Last game sessions 8 and 9. I lost a game somewhere in there. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think it was one of the DC games. Longest session I played was 6 games. I went 3 and 3 in that session. Day of the week. This is something that I've been tracking for a while, and you'll notice in previous months I've had, usually it's all stacked on like 3 to 4 days. Like I'll have heavy play on certain days. It's pretty evenly distributed for this beginning of the season so far. So I've been playing pretty consistently, like every day now. So no real outlying records other than the 1-8 and 3-8 on Saturday and Friday respectively. I don't know if that's just because that's when all the kids get out of school and they're playing or not, but I'm not entirely sure. But I'm going to keep an eye on that and see if it becomes a trend. Now, that is something that I've felt in the past, that playing on the weekends is brutal. So that could actually be, rooted in some sort of fact now. So we'll find out. One thing I track, this sort of for fun, to see if maybe mood setting or anything, is background music. And if you followed me for a while and, watch my stream, you notice I'm always listening to music. So nothing too crazy here. Usually I have like some kind of like metal mix on, and I'm 21 and 14 when I'm with that. Spangle, which is like sort of like EDM kind of stuff. 1-8, which is kind of weird because I usually do pretty good with that kind of stuff. So we're gonna keep tracking that, and I'll get back to it. Now onto the advanced metrics. This is like my bread and butter. This is the stuff that I've kind of created for myself to help measure my actual in-game effectiveness, because you can look at numbers all you want, but I kind of like grade these subjectively. If you want more details, you can go check it out. I have a blog post explaining exactly how these are calculated. I also have a video explaining how you can track them yourself. So combat values. My combat efficiency value is graded as -2 to 2. So my lane effectiveness average was slightly negative, -0.157. So for comparison, at the end of the season, I was positive 0.14. So I'm equally negative as I was positive at the end of the season, and I was dominating lane at the end of the season. So considering a lot of the champions I play, I should actually be doing much better in this than I am. And a lot of times it's because I'm getting outplayed in lane, where there's a lot of outside pressure, which is the next stat. So outside lane influence against and for. So I'm getting a lot of jungle help and a lot of jungle action against. So there's been a lot of 2v2s, a lot of first bloods against, for better or for worse. And typically I like a one-on-one kind of island matchup. It's kind of weird that I never developed into a top laner, but I kind of like that one-on-one mentality, and it's something that I thrive in, like dueling. So it's kind of odd that I, don't thrive, in top lane. But there's been a lot of action in the mid lane, whether it's a lot of jungle pressure because it's the easiest lane to gank now, not because it's warden, but because it's the closest distance. So, and there's certain champions that you're gonna want to gank. So I play a lot of Cassiopeia, who's easy to gank. LeBlanc, who isn't easy to gank, but receives a lot of ganks anyway because their jungler has to protect their mid laner. So that could have something to do with it. We'll keep tracking that and see if it's a pattern. My roaming effectiveness is the highest I've ever had by far. Now, I was roaming really well at the end of the season last season, and I had a .08, positive .08. I'm a positive .415 now. That's like 5 times better than I was doing at the end of the season. Now, in the off season, it's something I worked on, and I really forced myself to roam more and create more opportunities around the map and be more of an impact on the game. And I feel like that I've done that, even though my record hasn't necessarily shown it. Contribution values. So contribution values, if you see in like OGN, they do contribution for kill, and they do it in LCS now as well. But instead of contribution for kill, I just do contribution as kills and assists divided by teams kills and assists, and your deaths divided by teams deaths. So positive contribution average, that's across all games, was 19.22, and this is calculated as a flat number. Actually, that's technically a percent. So negative contribution was 18.52. So a net contribution, slightly positive, 0.07. For a comparison for you, at the end of last season, I was at 0. Like, I was even. I finished the season. So my net contribution was 0. So I was even, give or take whatever game it was in. I did have one more negative game than I did a positive game, and I had one game at even, but that's, not too much different than usual. Oddly enough, my record in positive contribution games is not better. I actually have a losing record, and I have a winning record in negative contribution games. So this is something I started tracking toward the end of last season too, and I actually do win more in negative contribution games. Now I don't know if that's just because of the games where I'm playing support or mid that I'm receiving a lot of pressure, and because my score doesn't it shows you the score doesn't necessarily translate to results, but it can. So we'll keep tracking that further as well. So damage statistics. As a note, this is calculated as percentage of my team's total damage to champions, not damage total, damage to champions, so enemy champions. So my average damage to champions is 19.86, which is about 1.5% lower than last season. But I've been playing lower damage champions, well, lower overall damage champions. I've been playing a lot of LeBlanc, who's more single target. If you exclude the support games, 22.51 is more in line with where I'm usually at. So, gold statistics. I started tracking some more goals. I've been tracking my own gold for and my opponent's gold against, and in non-support games. What I started doing was tracking the average goal for my lane partner when I'm support, and the enemy AD carry when I'm support. So that's new. I don't really know what's a good and bad number really, so I'm just going to keep track of that and see how that advances and if I can notice any trends there. Situational statistics. So this is based on things like pick order and match time and such other kind of information just about like the game. So match time statistics. The average match time was 32:15. So now people have been talking about how the games are going longer now. For a comparison, at the end of last season, my average match time was 30.28. Very short. Games are going longer now. A lot of the Season 4 changes and vision changes are making that the case. Longest time was longer than any of the games I played toward the end of the season, 56:33. Not the longest game ever, but shortest time. Everybody has those short DC kind of games. Distribution is where you can really see the average match time matter a lot more. There's a lot more games that are in the 30 to 35 minute range. It used to be pretty evenly distributed between 25 to 30 and 30 to 35. Now it's slightly more toward the 30 to 35 side. And unusually for me, I have a losing record in longer games, like the 2-6 here. I usually do well in longer games. Pick order is something that doesn't necessarily, I tracked it to see if there's some kind of correlation. I haven't really found one yet. I know that typically when I pick last, I do really well, but other than that, like it's usually pretty even. A lot of third pick games. This just shows you that matchmaking is working for me. First Bloods. I had a lot of First Bloods for. To give you yet another comparison toward the end of last season, I had in 140 something games at the end of last season, I had 8 First Bloods for and 8 against. I had 9 First Bloods for and 4 against in half the games. So a lot of action. I think a lot of it has to do with I played the majority of my games this season on LeBlanc, and she's a very powerful early game champion. I started tracking the assist on First Blood, so that's whether I get the assist on the First Blood and it gets some of the gold, or the assist against is if I was a part of the reason that the First Blood happened. So usually that's in bot lane, or if it's like a 2v2 with the junglers and mid lanes and mid. So I do have a winning record when getting First Blood. I don't have a good record when getting the assist. Maybe that's overconfidence, but we'll see. This is something I'm going to keep following. The most important thing is I've gotten a lot more First Bloods, and I'm getting myself up ahead and off to a good start. I did not do a queue at all this month. It was something I really wanted to set forward for myself. I have since done a couple duo queue games, so you'll see this next month. Champion information. The most played champion, as I've been saying, was LeBlanc. I went 10-9 in 19 games. I had a 3.61 to 1 KDA. Very low average CS number, 134.8. She's not really a farming champion, and as you'll see when we get down, the average game length was 30 minutes, so 2 minutes shorter than the average game length I've been getting because as LeBlanc, you want to snowball. You want to get the game over as fast as you can. It's not that she doesn't scale, but that's when she's at her peak. So I've been trying to do that. That being said, I do need to improve farm. Percent damage to champion is 21%, which is actually a pretty good number for a single target nuker like her, but I could improve that. Very good contribution scores and net contribution value of positive 4.59 on her. So a lot of action for and against. Negative lane influence or lane effectiveness is actually pretty odd because LeBlanc tends to dominate lane, but I think a lot of that is just me thinking I lost really hard because I'm losing in farm, so I might need to adjust. I am getting out CS by about 40, but that's because I'm seeing a lot of Ziggs and Gragas, so a lot of kills. 6.9 kills a game is pretty good. It's a pretty high number for me. I'm usually not that bloodthirsty, so it's a good number to see. Matchup specific information. So I played 16 different champions. I personally played 16 different champions this month. I didn't know where else to put that set, so I'm putting it here. My most frequent opponents were Caitlyn, which I faced 6 times, Gragas, which I faced 5 times, Yasuo, which I faced 4 times. My weakest matchup was Gragas. I went 1-4 against him, and you can see the numbers here. The big glaring weakness here is absolutely nothing. If you look, I have positive wins in those games, and it's much like Nidalee was toward the end of last season, where like I'm doing fine in lane. I could be winning this, I guess. My net value, my contribution value is good. My outside lane influence is better in my favor than it is against me, and I'm out roaming them, but I'm just not winning. So I think that a lot of that has to do with whether your team gets fed, or it's like he's just a very strong champion. He's really broken, honestly. So that's a lot of it. Positional specific statistics. Mid lane was 67% of my games played. I went 25 and 22. You can see a lot more of the numbers here. Overall good lane effectiveness. Not stellar, but pretty good. Very good roaming grade. I say again, like that's where I get a lot of that from. Contribution value is good. First bloods, for and against, etc. It's all very good. So my role's been good, not dominant, but good. To improve. Support was 33% of my games. I went 7 and 8, so slight losing record. A lot of it was. You can look at the average gold per minute of the enemy AD carry here, which is 382, versus my lane partner, which is 361. A very, very low lane effectiveness score, and tons of action, whether it's for or against in the bot lane, but my negative contribution value. So I'm dying a lot when I play support. I've been playing a lot of Leona, and I've been trying to experiment and get outside the box and play like Zyra, bring her back. But it's really difficult too in a meta that's got strong early game AD carries like Lucian and Sivir, and you have Annie, Thresh, and Blitzcrank rolling around. So I'm still kind of feeling out Season 4 support. I felt like I had a good grasp on it, but I guess I don't. So I'm gonna have to just play more. I did do 6 jungle games. I played, I believe 2 of them were Karthus, 3 of them were Gragas, and I think there was a Mundo game in there somewhere. Went 2 and 4. Just generally speaking, I get stomped in jungle. It's probably my 3rd best role, and I need to improve on it, as the numbers here show. I played 2 games top. I went 1 and 1. Got stomped in both games, really. It's 3-1 KDA, so I contributed, but it was more of a lose, not lose than a win kind of situation. So, and I did not AD carry at all this period. So, the goals for next month, I set 3 goals forth every month, and I check back the next month, and I will give myself 1 to 3 stars, depending on if I succeed at any of these goals. So I want to improve my farm numbers, and a lot of that has to do with me playing LeBlanc, and I understand that it's challenging to farm on her and to keep up your roaming and assassination and everything, but it's something I have to do and I have to focus on, and when I set my mind to it, it will actually happen. I'm sure of it. I need to continue exerting map pressure and roaming, because my roaming grades have been very high, and it's been a reason why I'm winning with such low numbers. So that's something that's like the complete opposite of how I was in the past. I used to be the lane-centric mid laner. I would focus on getting my tower down first, but with the tower changes and with certain champions being popular right now, wave clear is very strong. That is kind of off the table as a real option. So I'm trying to mix it up and become more versatile as a player, and this might be a bit to the extreme, but it's working so far, and I need to find like a happy medium. So that's what we're gonna go for there, and continue limiting negative contribution. So I had a very low, like relatively speaking, negative contribution score this month. It's like about 1.0 lower, which is really good because it usually hovers closer to 20. And I had like 19 this season, or this time period. So I want to keep that up. I want to keep not dying, even though I felt like I've been dying a lot, like especially in the sport. So I need to spread this across all roles, particularly support, which is where a lot of that's coming from. Bonus goal is going to be get to Platinum 1. I think I could do it, but I got to put the time in, and we'll see. Good thing is connections have been better, and we've got some new champs and stuff to fool around with, and people are hopefully getting more and more comfortable with the metagame. So you guys can find me on Twitter at GelatiLOL. I post the raw stats for this presentation on my blog at GelatiLOL.blogspot.com. The live stream is twitch.tv/GelatiLOL. I'm usually live weekday afternoons and some weekday nights, but if you follow me on Twitter, I will actually let you guys know ahead of time when I'm going to stream the best I can. And I just want to thank you guys for watching. Feel free to leave questions, comments, and suggestions. Thank you very much for watching.